All right. Week 1 is in the books for the Big Ten. And yesterday I shared the worst team at 18, going down to the 10th best team. And if you want to see that video, I will share a link at the end of this one. So now let's get to the top 9 teams in our power ranking, where I rank every team based on where I project them to finish off the eye test, performance, team talent, and level of competition. So this has nothing to do with the resume. This is a power ranking based on how good I just think they are and where I think they're going to finish at the end of the season. Of course, as more teams play week to week, the more data points we have for their performance relative to their strength of competition. So in week 1, it's hard to gauge since we do not really know how good our Big Ten teams are because we know very little about their opponents. Okay, at number 9, I have the Washington Huskies. Now, if I did my previous video over again, I might have actually put Washington between 18 and 10, to be honest, if I had to do it over again. But just based on their performance against Colorado State, I don't know how good Colorado State is. A lot of people think they're an ascending program. They're probably one of the better group of 5 teams. Their total talent rating, though, is only 91. So that puts them kind of overall as a lower mid-tier team, I would say. But definitely, they definitely pose some resistance, and their offense looks pretty good. Just by the eye test, their offense looks pretty good. But I also give a bit of benefit of the doubt because of Jedd Fisch, and where I think he's probably going to take the program. I really liked him as the offensive coordinator when he was at Michigan during Jim Harbaugh's first year in 2015. I was sad that he left at the time. Since then, he's bounced around a lot of different coaching positions, head coaching jobs. I think he made a lateral move after Michigan to UCLA. I think he became a head coach there. He survived there for a while, and then he was at Arizona. He did really good at Arizona, though. That program was beginning to ascend under him, and he had a really good season in 2023 before he took over last year at Washington. And he was definitely left with quite a turnover. I believe there's only one player left over from the 2023 national champion runner-up team left on the roster, left in their starting 22 that played. So he had a lot to work with last year, and I think he managed it pretty well. He went 6-6. He also had 2 pretty definitive wins over USC and a very definitive win against a revenge win against the defending national champions of Michigan. And as you know, looking at this game, it's being that he's an offensive-minded coach, it's no surprise that their offense did look as good as it did against Colorado State. The thing I was most impressed with was their young quarterback, their young sophomore quarterback. I believe his name is Williams, Darian Williams. I probably got it wrong, but he looked really impressive. Their passing game is really explosive, and then he can run the ball. Like, he's really fast. Running the ball too. So, but the issue is their defense is secondary. Now that's the big thing. That's the real big issue, that because it looked so bad and they gave up so many big plays, that's where I almost doubt if they're really a top 9 team in the Big Ten. If they're one of the middle, high upper middle tier teams, they might be a lower middle tier team because their defense could be holding them back. But we'll see. I mean, it could be just a lot of blown coverages because maybe they're a young secondary and maybe they'll make adjustments and they'll get better there. But but they could also be in a lot of shootouts this year, so it'll be interesting to see where they end up going. But for now, I guess I'm just going to keep them at number 9. So at number 8, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes, and boy, it was that game they had a snooze fest. I didn't really make it too far. I think I saw enough. I think I saw about a quarter and a half of football watching them, and had enough. It was nothing new that you see out of Iowa. Different quarterback, different name. I think his name was Gronowski. I had heard about him a little bit going into the season. He received some hype that he was supposed to be, a huge upgrade to the offense, and watch out for Iowa because of that. But nothing looked different to me. Their offense is probably a lot better than Mr. Nepotism kid from 2 seasons ago. But their defense, solid. Special teams solid. Typical Iowa team. I wouldn't be surprised if Vegas had their over/under at 7.5 wins. I mean, that's just what they are. They average probably about 7.5 wins a year, so they're going to have a record of either 8-5 or 8-4 probably again this year. There's really nothing to say. It's just the most typical Iowa team. Kirk Ferentz has found a way to get 8 wins every year, do enough to never get fired, but at the same time never win anything of significance, never have any inkling of ambition to win 11 games in a season and win any trophy. Recruit wide receivers. So nothing's really changed with this team from what I could tell, and there's really not much more to say about them. Right, at number 7, I have the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana this week played Old Dominion, and they won 27-14, and Old Dominion has the total team talent rating of 118 going into this season. And Old Dominion's first play of the game went for a touchdown. Quarterback power read, basically, I think is what it was. Fake sweep to the left. The whole Indiana line and linebackers just shifted with the running back, and then there was like a seal block on the other side, and then there was just this big gaping hole that the quarterback just ran through. And there was another one late in the game where it was sort of the opposite, where like it was a fake sweep to the right, and then the quarterback kept it to left, and again it opened up. So make of that what you will. I don't know if that's just really bad discipline on the defense, and that's something to be concerned about, or that's just sort of a fluky thing where they just gave up two big plays on really well-designed plays. But I imagine that's something that they will definitely look at film for, and that they will probably correct. So if you were to take those two things out of the equation and look at the game on a whole, Indiana ran for over 300 yards. They outgained, even with those 2 big gash runs for touchdowns, they still outgained Old Dominion by almost 200 yards. The one thing if I'm an Indiana fan that I would be concerned about if I'm evaluating the team, is right now the quarterback play is a little disappointing. I think Mendoza is supposed to be a grade upgrade from O'Rourke. And he only threw for 193 yards. And he threw for under 60%, I believe. So his completion rate wasn't very high. But the run game's really solid. The run game's really good. The running back room is really deep. They have Hemby came over from Maryland, and they had at least 3 running backs rotating in there. So they have a deep running back room, and they have once again solid, well coached, on both sides of the interior of the line of scrimmage. Nothing, no issues there. Great running game, really methodical offense. Not much of a drop off on offense, I don't think. Defensively, they still up front look a little small, I think. Didn't really show up all that much in this game, but that might be an issue going into Big Ten season. There might be still a few more recruiting classes for Curt Cignetti to get the players that he needs up front to be able to compete with like the top tier teams in the trenches in the Big Ten. But I'm probably not as concerned as maybe a lot of people are with this game. Maybe they should have scored more points. Maybe their passing game needs to improve. But as of right now, it just looks like a team that took a little bit of a step back. But even with the roster turnover, they still look like a solid team, like a very solid team, well-coached team like they were last year. So right now I am going to keep them at number 7. Okay, so at number 6, I have the USC Trojans. Now I caught mostly highlights of them, and I caught a little glimpse of the game they had against Missouri State. I gotta say, like what I saw was really impressive, just eye test wise. Granted, it's Missouri State, but anytime you put 73 points up and you put almost 600 yards up against anybody, and you just dominate that much, I mean that's really impressive. They just look like a well-oiled machine. There's not much other I can say other than that I can say. Their quarterback play looked really well. Their running game looked good. Defensively, they look solid. I mean, they're a good. I mean, they're a well-coached defense because of D'Anton Lynn, who they got last year, who came from UCLA and turned around that program and made him the 11th best defense in 2023 when he was coaching under Chip Kelly, and he comes from the NFL with NFL pedigree. So everybody's expecting USC to finally get a good defense, and I think once their defense is adapted to the Big Ten and they're stout enough, that remains to be seen in the Big Ten season to see if this defense is going to be stout enough and well adapted to Big Ten play, and if they can improve on their defense from last year. But yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for a long time under Lincoln Riley because he was so successful at Oklahoma for everything to come together at USC, because USC has great resources and, it attracts recruits. And it's a blue blood program, and you would think Lincoln Riley would have this program at a championship level at some point. So it might be a matter of time. It might be, I think, a matter if they get the recruits or not in the interior, in the interior lines, really. But so far, it's they're off to a good start, and I think right now I have them at number 6. Makes a lot of sense. This program has, I think, starting to develop some good continuity right now. Okay, so at number 5, I have my Michigan Wolverines. So a lot of people are going to look at the score, and they're going to see that it was 34-17. All the rival fans are going to be like, "You struggled against New Mexico, LOL." Yeah. But really, the score's not really indicative of really how the game went. I know New Mexico put up a really good fight, and there was a point in the second quarter where it looked like Michigan lost momentum and New Mexico swung it. Then Michigan swung it back really nicely with that 3rd and 14 completion, which I'll get to later. But I I don't think the score is indicative of actually like how the game went because number one, there was a drive extended by 2 egregious calls, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. We all know that they're egregious, and that extended the drive, and that gifted them 7 points, and it gave them 2 extra possessions, and it took a possession away from Michigan where they would have had an extra possession where they could have scored. So, and if you take away the muff punt, where the defense stopped them immediately after they turned the ball over on that muff punt by their freshman, Andrew Marsh, by the way, who was a freshman who muffed the punt. They kicked a field goal and they held him to 3 immediately on a 3-and-out. So, I mean, if you really look at the game, how many more yards Michigan had than they did, they had almost 200 yards more. The score really should have been about 41-7. But if you were to, even include the fumble, because it legitimately happened, I mean, like it's at least 34-10. But the first thing I'll get to is Bryce Underwood. Really, I mean that's the biggest thing. That's what's on everybody's mind, and my impressions were like, wow. I was probably just in awe, more as like a Michigan fan. I had stars in my eyes watching him. But from the get-go, when he ran out into the field, embraced the crowd, it wasn't really cockiness or arrogance. It was just like confidence. Before the game, he said, "I'm different than other quarterbacks, other freshmen. I'm different than other freshmen." And people can easily interpret that as being immature and cocky and arrogant. But here's the thing. It's not cocky and arrogant when you're correct. Because when you watch this game, he was nothing like a freshman. He just turned 18 and he already had more yardage in the first half than any quarterback had, I think, like Davis Warren had in a full game last year, or most of his full games passing. His accuracy was insane. His ball placement was ridiculous for a freshman. His game was polished. He looked like a senior. Like his game was really polished. He made mistakes. He made some bad throws, but his ball placement, his ability to scan the field confidently, look down the field, his ability not to rush out of the pocket and play scared. No wasted motion with his legs either. It's like he looked like a veteran. Like he's like a 5th-year senior or something. With his level of confidence and his decisiveness with how he moved out of the pocket. And how he threw off, how he threw while moving. How he threw across his shoulder at times while moving to the right. And zipping it into a window. Like the ball just popped off his hand. His 3rd and 14, like this is a freshman. Jerome Moore last year would have ran the ball, draw play, and punted it, right? This year with the freshman, he's like, okay, get us out of this hole. Because it was 17-10 and it was starting to look bad. At that moment, it looked scary. And they're like, we'll put this 3rd and 14 into your hands to bail us out and keep this drive going. And get us back momentum. And he did. And he rifled the ball, for like a 30-yard gain. It was crazy. So I was thoroughly impressed. He had a beautiful touch pass also in the game to Marlon Klein from inside his 5 where he looped the ball over defenders perfectly. It was incredible. So, by the end of the season, he could be a lot of trouble for a lot of teams by the end of the season, especially Ohio State maybe. But looking at the game, I think their one issue, I think, is just their secondary, really their backup secondary players. I think Zeke Berry and I can't remember. I don't know why I don't remember their other player, Jair Hill, when they were in, they played really well. But I think Wink Martindale was very experimental. He was just rotating players just to see who's who, and to see what he's got, and to see what they're made of in real game time, so that he knows what his personnel is, so they can be prepared for Oklahoma. And he blitzed a lot, but I think he blitzed a lot so that to protect. So that the more vulnerable defensive backs who might be getting burned weren't giving up huge gash plays. And I think he blitzed so that those long plays couldn't develop in the passing game. So I think a lot of the defensive issues were just more by design, and what Wink Martindale was kind of doing, and what he was planning for next week to look at his defense. Their offensive line, I think, was decent. I'd have to rewatch the game, but a lot of analysts. I watched the Doug Skeen show, the Ballast and Skeen show, and Doug Skeen. He's a podcaster, and he former Michigan player, offensive lineman from the '90s, and he gave him a great grade. So I take his level of expertise with a lot of weight, so they must be pretty good. I would say though, their pass protection looked a lot better than their run blocking. The run blocking didn't seem at times in the interior to get a huge push. That's my only issue. I would say their offensive line just doesn't look elite. That's really it. But yeah, I mean, this team looks poised on a playoff run. I don't think they're, one of the three best, probably, in the Big Ten, but they're knocking on the door. They're right there at 4 or 5. Right now, I have them at number 5. Okay, at number 4, I have the Illinois Fighting Illini. So I'll be honest, I did not catch this game. I did not catch highlights. The game was restricted from my viewing where I live. But a lot of hype, but a lot of mystery about Illinois going into the season. People figured with them winning 10 games last year that they would have another good team this year. Giving that is Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema is a very good coach. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of him because he runs his mouth a lot, especially on social media. And he kind of doesn't. I mean, granted, he's a guy that's been successful in college football at Wisconsin before. He's been he's been in the Bill Belichick rehabilitation program after he kind of got his ass whipped by the SEC when he was at Arkansas. But he's got a great coaching pedigree, and he's a really good coach, and he's a good at developing programs. He really knows what he's doing. He's definitely one of the probably top 4 coaches in the Big Ten. Yes, I mean, he's got the program going in a great direction. It looks like he has a great culture going on there. Interesting, though, is that his second season, they had a very conservative, very kind of Iowa type of offense. But with, some really good skill players here and there. A really good running back, Brown, who went to the NFL, who was really one of the 3 best running backs in 2022. They had Juice Williams, and great defenders that went to the NFL. And that team, they had good quarterback play too. I forget the name of their player who's in the NFL now. But they're really conservative. They didn't really have an explosive pass game. They had a very Iowa-type style offense where they possessed the ball, they ran the ball, and they didn't really take a lot of risks on offense throwing the ball. And they played very complementary football with their very good defense. 2023 was interesting because that was a total reverse of what they had in 2022, the team had a huge drop off. Luke Altmaier had a lot of passing yards that year, and they had an explosive passing game, but in the trenches they were very weak. Their defense was really bad. So it was a huge departure from 2022. So people did not know what to expect going into 2024, and they had a really good year last year with Luke Altmaier. And this year, they could be a very dangerous team because they could have an element of like what 2022 was, where they're a very physical team. They can run the ball really well and they can stop the run. They have a good defense. And they could have that along with the explosive passing game that Altmaier has. So, and looking at the score, I mean, they won, 52-3. They just blew out whatever group of 5 team they played. To me, that's a really good sign of where they're at, because in 2023, they started off really bad in their non-conference games, and they really struggled. So, and last year, their first game, non-conference opponent, they blew them out, and they beat Kansas. So everything appears like they're building on last year, and they have a good continuity going on right now, and they could be very dangerous, and it could be very scary for a lot of teams. So right now I have them ranked at number 4 ahead of Michigan, just because they have a little bit better established continuity with their quarterback, and just they're rolling on all cylinders, it appears. So now we're going to get into the top tier now of the Big Ten. And each one of these teams in the top tier, I believe, are just really close to each other, and it's too early to tell which one of these 3 teams is going to kind of pull away from the other. I think we won't find out until they play each other. And so at number 3, I have Oregon, the Oregon Ducks, and Oregon is a really, really talented team. They did lose Dylan Raiola, so I think it's a matter of how far they'll go is how good Dante Moore will be. And Dante Moore, to me, brings me a little bit of extra intrigue because he's a local Michigan kid that grew up like Bryce Underwood, down the road from Ann Arbor, really close to Ann Arbor. And he was recruited since he was in middle school, since I think he was 14, by Jim Harbaugh. And, of course, he turned Michigan down because Michigan was not willing to play ball. This was the beginning of the NIL era at this time. And, Harbaugh famously said, Michigan's a transitional program still. And that's what, college is supposed to be. So that was kind of a signal that, no, we're not playing ball. Well, yeah, we'll do NIL a little bit, but we're not gonna do the bag game. Well, Oregon was in the bag game, and he went to Oregon and chose Oregon over Michigan. But then this is when I knew that we missed out. We ducked a bullet from this kid. Is that he then took even a bigger bag at UCLA? He took the bag, he took the commitment at Oregon, but that bag wasn't big enough. So he reversed his commitment and went to UCLA. So that to me just told me that we lucked out with this kid, that he didn't choose us. Because maybe not the best team player, maybe not real loyal. But he's now the starting quarterback at Oregon. He did play his freshman year at UCLA under Chip Kelly. So he has experience, and watching him this game, I'll have to say he's doing really, he looked really solid. But it's too early to tell if he's really the guy that can really fill the shoes of Dylan Raiola yet, and take him to a Big Ten championship. Because they didn't really open up the playbook a lot for him. He didn't really have a lot of tight throw windows that he had to make. So it's hard to tell how like where his ceiling is at. But he was solid. He was accurate with most of his throws. He didn't make many mistakes. Threw for a lot of yards, and looked like he was good enough to be the starting quarterback at Oregon. So, but overall good start for him, and the team. Oregon looked like everything like a top tier Big Ten team in that game. They blew the pants off of trying to remember who they played. Montana State. But they did what they were supposed to do. Did a lot better than they did last year against Idaho State in their opening game. So, not much to say. They just look really good. They look like a super talented team across the board, no weakness. Great running backs, good receivers. Not as good as receivers as like Ohio State, but so I have them at number 3. At number 2, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. I know. Michigan bias, right? I can imagine Buckeye fans getting upset and lots of other fans thinking I'm crazy not putting them at the top after being the number 1 team. But these rankings really mean nothing going into week 1. With that said, Ohio State does appear to have an impressive mark on their resume with a very high-profile victory over Texas. And Texas is likely going to be a top 10 to 15 team by season's end. So this gives Ohio State some needed insurance in case they drop a game or two against Penn State or Michigan. Or even on the road against Illinois with how good that team looks so far. But I'm really not sure how good Texas is going to be exactly. So Texas had to replace a lot of starters on the offensive line, and Archie Manning had not started in a single road game really yet. And he was definitely affected by the road environment provided by the shoe in this game. And even with the depleted O-line, Texas was able to run the ball surprisingly well against Ohio State, while Texas really was not threatening the defense very much throwing the ball down the field. So it makes me wonder if Ohio State is their run defense, if it's a little bit suspect. They were good in short down distance running plays, though, however, but I still question their run game because Texas was pretty successful doing it. I really think, though, that Texas is probably going to be a good team, but they are really not projected to be the best team in the SEC. And I thought with their offensive turnover that they were overrated at number 1 to start the season. Quite overrated. And I think a lot of people think they're overrated. And because I think with inexperienced quarterback, if Texas has an inexperienced quarterback in this game, I think they would have won. You could see that the road game environment really affected Archie Manning a lot in this game. He missed a lot of throws on that last drive. Missed a lot of throws throughout the game that he should have made. But so I think Texas, they stubbed their toe in this game as they did last year's game, and that's kind of an ongoing pattern, I think, that's developing with Texas is in big games. They just always kind of stub their toe, whether they're the team with the turnover. They're the team with the turnover in this game. They're the team that, made more mistakes, had more penalties. So, and they, in key plays, fourth down plays, they just didn't rise to the occasion. So I'm really not thoroughly impressed with Ohio State really yet because of that. They look like they have a little bit of drop off at quarterback and really more defensively in the run game. I think to be considered right now the best team in the country and to be at the top of the Big Ten, they cannot have these types of questions. I'm not saying Sane is not a good or very good quarterback, but it is a noticeable drop-off at this juncture, at least from Will Howard last season. But knowing Ohio State, their new quarterbacks will always improve as the season progresses. So So for now, I have the Buckeyes at number 2. Okay, so at number 1 in the Big Ten, and I think also the best team in the country, the most complete team in the country, is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Yeah, I have them ranked ahead of Ohio State. I think they're more complete than Ohio State. I think they're better in the trenches than Ohio State. They have a better running game than Ohio State. They have a better quarterback than Drew Aller's definitely a better quarterback than Julian Sayin. I'd say the advantage Ohio State, where Ohio State is better, is in their secondary and that wide receiver. And they got a super Marvel hero in Jeremiah Smith. So, but I will take a better run game, better trench play, more balanced offense, a more complete team, and a better quarterback over what Ohio State has. I thought Ohio State's, like I said in the previous, when I was talking about them, is that they looked vulnerable in the run game. Penn State doesn't look like they have really any weaknesses right now. So I definitely have them at number 1. And, it's interesting last year, coming into this year, I didn't really get the Drew Aller hype. I get the Penn State hype all around because they have a great defense. Jim Knowles is coming in. They might even be even better than they were last year with on defense. Now that they have Jim Knowles, but who knows? Sometimes there's a learning curve in the first year of a Jim Knowles defense. So we'll see how good their defense is and how it evolves as the season goes on. But the interesting thing with Drew Aller is last year he just seemed like he was dependent on his security blanket with Warren, his tight end. And it seemed like their offense consisted of running the ball, and when they threw the ball, it was to either Warren or a wide receiver string to like Singleton, to like Nick Singleton. But hardly any balls thrown to wide receivers. So they're not very much dimensions to their offense. But looking at them now in this game against Nevada, they're definitely a multi-dimensional offense. Drew Aller he has scrambling ability and he's a run threat. If you don't spy him and you don't take him into account in the passing game, he can definitely run for first downs. I think they have the best backfield in college football. They may have the best offensive line in college football. They probably have the best offensive line in the Big Ten. Best running game. And now Drew Aller is starting to look more like a complete quarterback. Like he could make the throws, and he could throw to and he's throwing to wide receivers now. So I thought going into the season that was really the missing piece of Penn State for them to be a complete team, to be a championship caliber team, to at least compete be in the national championship game, was to develop the passing game with the wide receivers. And from what I saw that. And the defense looks great. They looked real dominant in their game against Nevada. They have no weaknesses, and I think they're the most complete team. I think it's just a matter of does Rich Franklin have any mind blocks, any goofiness in Rich Franklin that's going to get in the way and make them stub their toe. But really, they have to be the favorites to win the Big Ten, and it would be a failed season if they did not at least make it to the championship game this year. It would be really bad for Rich Franklin, because if it's not this year, when will it be? So, number 1, I have Penn State.